So, good morning, fellow bass fanatic lunatics. Apologies for not being around for a while, but I got a case of pneumonia as a complication of long COVID, which I've now been battling for, I think this year 3 or 4. You lose track of time. 3 years anyway, over 3 years. So not been an easy time, but getting back on my feet, and hopefully we'll be fishing this week. So forecast looks good, tides are good. Going to be in the estuaries. Really looking for big fish. Really, that's it. I'm not going looking for numbers at all. Couple of things I'm really excited about, although I probably don't look it. It's hard to be excited when you've been as sick as I have. Oh God, I'm so tired of being sick. It's just exhausting. But anyway, I wanted to say a big shout out to a couple of friends, Mike Carlton being one of them. Mike, I'll get back to you, and best wishes. It was really great to hear from you, man. One of the old school. So this rod here is what I'm going to use, which is the Black Swan medium MH, I think it is. The 1036 gram anyway. And I certainly think it's going to cover all of my needs. It'll allow me to fish reasonably light, 10 grams. And I'm probably a bit lighter, to be honest. And it'll allow me to fish heavy, which is really where it's going to be at, I think, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So I am still a big tide fisherman. I know that they haven't worked out this year and all the rest of it, but there's no doubt that on the big tides, the fish go in the estuaries, right? Or certainly some fish go in the estuaries, sauce. Recently enough, and I over and over and over again over the years, right? But I have a few lures and a few new lures that I'm excited about using, and I'm going to tell you why I'm excited about them. One of them is this guy here, which is the 7-inch curly tail X-Layer, right? The other one is this here, which is the Madness Madiel 140 in French Wakasagi. Now that's on a 25 gram head. I'm also going to have it hooked on some lighter heads. I'm going to give some of, and thank you very much, Carl, for your baits, by the way. I'm going to give some of Carl's baits a run out. I've never fished them. I like a bit of pink. Sometimes I think it can induce a strike. Speaking of which, you'll see I have here one of my all-time favorite soft plastic baits in the world. Is that chap there? It's the 1-Up Shad. So I have that. I'll be fishing that in a range of colors, right? I'll be fishing it from like those kind of crazy pinks, bright pinks, through to these kind of really nice natural tinsel browns, and of course, if the sun comes out at all, my favorite color of all time, the gold shiner. That lure just has absolutely murdered fish for me. Now I won't be fishing it on that birdie head because it's clearly dead. I would not like to hook the fish of a lifetime on that. So that's one for the bin. So why do I like the Madiel? Right. Yeah. So sometimes it's like you want a lure to give you a lot of action, right? Like thump, 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 thump. That's fine. But other times you want less action, right? Because if you watch the bait in the water, it doesn't do a whole lot. Like it's not like sandhills or lance have big tails that thump or whatever, right? And where I'm fishing, I'm fishing a drop off or a hole, right? So it's an estuary channel and it washes into a hole, and what happens is the big fish drop out and they slide into this hole, and they just sit there. And they don't budge. They just sit there and they wait for stuff to wash over their head or stuff to get washed down past them, like small turbot and crabs and all the other things that get washed out in a 8 knot tide or whatever, and they just grab it and da 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 da. So they're pretty lazy. They don't really, you know, actively hunt per se, except for occasionally when you get like the joey mackerel, etc., coming in, and we get them switched on. But other than that, my approach to fishing for big fish has always been to kind of go slow, give them lots of time to think about it. I think there's another myth that I want to disband, that you can't catch big fish on surface lures. I've actually had more big fish on surface lures than on any other type of lure. So I don't know. It's not like a luck thing. It's just that they like surface lures, right? Now, granted, it's always in shallow water. It's always in estuary water, right? Estuaries are kind of my home ground. It's where I really like to fish. It's what I enjoy, right? So, I mean, do what blows your hair back, right? Isn't that what they say? But I have that in two colors. Now, I'm not sure that really it makes any difference. I like black and gold. I don't know why. I just do. It gives me confidence. There's something about it. And then I have the French Wakasagi. So those are two of the baits. Here's a slightly cheaper version, right? And I'm definitely going to be giving this a fish. And it's the Evo 2 Sayori shad from Ultimate Fishing, right? And it's on a rolling head, 20-gram rolling head, okay? So how I'm going to be fishing these is pretty static, really. I'm going to cast them, let them run into the hole, and I'm going to leave them out there for quite a long time. So it takes a lot of patience, because the temptation is to fish for the fish that you know are going past you, right? Because they are going past you. I mean, literally in this channel, sometimes you can see them coming. So the temptation is to cast like a Z claw, and catch 6 or 7 4-pound fish, right? Whereas if you're patient and you stand and you just fish the hole out, eventually you'll find one of the bigger fish that's sitting on the bottom, right? Now, not always, but it's certainly your best chance at it. So, given that I haven't had much chance to fish this year, I really would like to target some bigger fish. The other lures I will be using that I don't have to hand are the Dark Sleeper. I have no idea why the Dark Sleeper hasn't caught on in this country. It's an absolutely, well, I know it has with certain anglers, certainly some Waterford anglers. It's an incredible lure. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I was looking as well on Southside Angling there, the Z-Man Goby. That looks like it would be absolutely lethal. I'm actually going to start making some soft plastics myself, because I think if you could make a goby, a small little lure that you could fish on 12, 13-pound fluorocarbon, I think you'd catch a hell of a lot of bass, right? I think there are a lot of bass standing that just are just standing, right, that we never catch, right? How many times have you been fishing? I can think of one corner I fish in Wexford, and like the last time I fished it, I was fishing it a good hour, right? And on my very last cast, a fish came up and smashed the Evo Bass Lance. Now that fish had been there all along. I'm pretty sure of it. You know what I mean? It's just that the lance didn't represent anything that was there that day, right? And eventually it annoyed him enough that he had a crack at it. Now, I didn't hook or land the fish or whatever, but I got to thinking, I don't think we pay enough attention as bass anglers. Yeah, you can get a bass to take a kiltie, and yeah, you can get a bass to take a straight up paddle tail, just cast and retrieve, and blah 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 blah. But how many bass are we missing, and how many bass are actually sitting there, right? And like, if you look at the bass that the spear fishermen are walking away with, right? I mean, there are huge bass in there, and they're killing them left, right, and center. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that argument. But like, what I'm trying to say is that I think there's room always to improve your fishing, right? And to think about your fishing and to think about, well, what's there, what are they feeding on, how can I present my baits in such a way as to make them attractive, right? And I mean, I've just seen that dark sleeper catch fish when no other lure was catching fish, right? And I've gone, all right, okay. And it was the same with the needlefish when we first got them, right? Like, we were on the beaches and nothing was catching, and next thing we put on this needlefish and it started absolutely hammering fish. So the fish were there all along. They just, they wanted what they wanted, right? And what they were feeding on was sand eel, and if it didn't look like sand eel, they weren't taking it, right? So and then of course this summer, the one night we got that was good on the beaches, that was like really old school fishing, we had over 20 fish, and 10 of them were in the 60s. It was a full moon tide, and I was fishing 14-pound fluorocarbon, and Charles was beside me fishing 20-pound and didn't get a touch. And the minute he dropped it down to 14-pound, he started getting hits and started catching fish. So that really got me thinking. And then I went fishing with I love fishing with pike anglers, right? Pike anglers make great bass anglers. If you fished with lures for pike, you'll make a good bass angler, because pike men understand that the smallest change can make a huge difference, right? You don't need to necessarily understand why, you just need to understand that is the case, right? Like the difference between like casting a lure, letting it sink and just slowly retrieving it, and casting a lure and, you know, jerking it back, right? Is huge. It's huge. You know, I had a trip this year with the chaps from the north, Derek and we Josh and Tommy, and like the only lure. Now, it wasn't that they would just take a hound glide, but it was that they would only take a lure that was just cast and slowly retrieved. And it just so happened that the hound glide was the only lure we had that was the right profile for a joey mackerel, right? Because what was happening was the joeys were chasing the sprat onto the beach, and the bass were chasing the joeys, right? So they were super focused on the joeys. So if it didn't look like a joey, they didn't want it, right? So you know, I'm rambling, but there's loads to think about, right? Like, bass fishing is not as straightforward as, oh, you know, go buy a pack of this and pack of that and chuck it here and you'll catch fish. Yeah, you might, but you can also catch lots of fish in the daytime. I mean, it became fashionable. Oh, it's only worth fishing at night. No, it's total bullshit. You know, like I catch lots of fish in the day. In fact, this year I did a lot better in the daytime, and I took one client in particular, and I teaching him how to surface fish, Gav, and he was dumbstruck. He was like, "Holy shit, I didn't realize." And I was like, "Well, there you go. Like, once you find a rip and the fish are feeding in the rip, and you get your popper, popper. Let me see. We got one handy. I should do. God knows I own enough of them. Oh yeah, here we go. Once you get your popper into that rip, right? Okay. Now, how much do you want that to do? Well, that depends. Like, you know, do you pop? No, I barely pop them at all, right? You know, I remember years ago fishing with Pat, Pat Connolly from Waterford, and fishing the Bannow, and actually watching a fish come up behind the lure, popping it, and keep dragging it away from him, and he followed it the whole way to the shore, into the shoreline, and then I stopped the lure and he hit it. You know, so like sometimes less is more is what I'm trying to get across to you. Don't overwork the lures, right? And if a fish is following, it's most likely time to take that lure, in my experience, is when the line straightens out, right? Is when it's at 45-degree angle. Same as dry fly fishermen for trout, right? So I think there are a lot of similarities. A couple of the other lures I'm excited about using are this guy here. This is the Slingshot from Megabass, right? I think that's going to be an absolutely big fish caller, right? Because it's a mouthful, right? It's worth moving for. Okay, I'm not gonna that I was just checking the size on that hook. If I do fish it on that hook, it'll be on a Jabuska, right? And it'll be on whatever. It'll probably be on about 10 or maybe more, 12 grams. To get it down and just let it run along the bottom and bang along in the sand, right? I wanted to make lots of fuss on the bottom to catch the attention of those to those big fish. So, oh yeah, the other style of fishing I'm going to be doing, apart from trotting baits along the bottom. So let me show you the size differential, which is hilarious, right? I'll be fishing baits from that size to this size, right? Like, I'm basically, when I fish, I throw the kitchen sink at it, right? I figure out what they're feeding on, and then that's what I present them with, right? Now, there are certain lures I will not leave the house without. One is the feed popper. The other is the feed shallow. I have the 128s at the minute in stock. I prefer the 155s. I prefer the bigger ones. This is a lure that's new to me, but I think is going to be absolutely lethal. Now, the price on these is lethal as well, by the way. It's a Gangcraft Scaper. That's the reason I'm fishing the heavier favorite rod. I mean, the action on these, when I flicked this out of the boat, I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, I know a spot where, you know, it's shallow and the fish hold in the bubbleweed, and I mean big fish hold in that bubbleweed. And I think if you put that over their head, they're going to come for it. So those are going to be my two tactics. I'm going to fish the bottom and I'm going to fish the surface. I'm going to fish the bottom in two ways. One is I'm going to trot lures down the current and, you know, try and catch some fish, right? Some 3, 4, whatever pound of fish is there. And then towards the end of the tide, I'm going to go and target in a hole. I'm going to go and target big fish, because I have no big fish this year. I have some 70s and stuff, but I haven't had a double this year, and I really would like to get a double on the cards, despite the fact that I've been sick. And those are the lures I'm primarily going to be using. Obviously, I will be using these, my usual Megabass Sparkleberry, X-Lair Silver Sparkle, X-Lair Chartreuse, Giant X-Lair Chartreuse, 5-inch haze dongs, 5-inch haze dongs in white. Right, so, and I have those in hot pink as well. I'm gonna, literally, I will have a little bit of everything, because you never know what switches the fish on. It's good to change your lure frequently. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, why, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I mean, I think people claim they know, but I don't know why one day they want one thing and another day they want another thing, right? but it is definitely the case, right? And oh yeah, and I'm going to be fishing these bad boys. These are incredible. I mean, those are just phenomenal lures, right? It's the depths, Death Adder. I mean, the action on those is just so lifelike, so realistic, right? Especially this time of year when there's big lance. That's the 6-inch version. When there's big lance in the estuaries, and my trusty 1-up shads. I'm going to have those in a range of colours. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. Hopefully I will be able to get back to you later in the week and report on how the fishing went if I'm strong enough. I'm really looking forward to testing the heavier favorite rod. I really like the feel of it. It's light and it feels powerful. I'm really hoping that it performs as well as I think it's going to. But I will let you know. As I say, if the one thing I'm going to be on this channel is honest about the kit that I have and that I'm trying to sell and what have you. So until then, folks, tight lines. I know we've had huge easterlies here for 2 days, but that's settling down now. So hopefully we should have a chance at a bit of fishing. So good luck to everybody, and nice to be back online. Tight lines.